On this Tuesday installment of Locked On Texans, the Houston Texans could be positioning themselves to get a quarterback in the draft, but this time it's a new prospect.
And to tie it all in, we want to develop a great team here that we can deliver wins to the city of Houston. We want to deliver a championship here to the city of Houston, and that's what it'll be about.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Texan podcast on YouTube, along with Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Megaphone, and Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. I'm John, some sports guy Hickman. Of course, I'm joined by none other than Texan and Rockets beat reporter, along with a writer of the Sports Illustrated family, Cody Davis, for a couple of things that we got to get into. First and foremost, guys, I am still under the weather, so I apologize. But got to talk about that tweet that was put out by the Houston Texans social media team.
Poker face.
Also, we have to looking back at how the last regular season game messed up everything for the Houston Texans. But I think it's important, Cody, to start with what we are hearing behind closed doors, and that is not Will Levis for the Houston Texans. However, the potential of Hendon Hooker being your next potential franchise quarterback for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, man. And let me start off by saying this first and foremost. I understand that throughout this whole entire draft process, of course, at the start, it was CJ or Bryce. Then later on, we was preaching CJ. Still preaching CJ. This is Tuesday, April 25th. We are officially 2 days before the NFL draft. Once again, speaking into existence with the second overall pick, the Houston Texans will select CJ Stroud because at the end of the day, look, Bryce Young will go number one to the Carolina Panthers unless something drastically changed the day of the draft. Everyone, including myself and John, we are expecting Bryce Young to go number one to the Carolina Panthers. And at number two, we all know over the last 13, 14 days, it's been a lot of what should the Houston Texans do, not just with the second overall pick, but what should they do at quarterback? And like I say here a lot on this show, there is no possible way you could take a look at the season that Davis Mills had and say to yourself, we want to go into the 2023 campaign with him as our starting quarterback, especially without giving him a chance to at least compete for his starting job. With that being said, John, as you know, there has been several prospects linked to the Houston Texans at the quarterback position. Now, with that being said, John and myself, we reached out to a couple sources, and they both confirmed that the Houston Texans are high on Hendon Hooker. I was told that there is a strong possibility that the Texans will get him in the first round. John, your sources confirmed to you that Hendon Hooker had a very strong pro day, very strong top 30 visit, a very strong combine interview in March. And, you know, I understand that Hendon Hooker is coming into the NFL draft with a ACL injury, and I'm pretty sure whoever takes a chance on Hendon Hooker, everyone, including myself, we are expecting him to kind of redshirt at least the first half of his rookie campaign. However, John, hearing the news that the Houston Texans do like Hendon Hooker gives me a little bit more confidence in this franchise. Look, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm still pulling for CJ. I think CJ is the second best quarterback prospect in this draft. However, if you pass up on CJ, in my opinion, it's definitely time for you to go to the next best quarterback prospect. And in my opinion, that's Hendon Hooker. This is a guy in 11 games prior to his ACL injury has thrown for over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. And I say it almost every single day. If Hendon Hooker was healthy, he would have a lot more buzz around his name entering the draft. I like this. I would not be mad if the Houston Texans went this route. However, I think the biggest issue in terms of the Texans going after Hendon Hooker is what will be the gameplay? Of course, I highly doubt they're going to take him with the number 2 overall pick. Would 12 be too high, drafting Hendon Hooker, knowing that you're going to go into the season at least with Davis Mills as your potential starting quarterback for at least the first couple of weeks, because we still don't know the recovery process with Hooker. So that's going to be the next biggest, I don't want to say issue, but the next biggest concern. Like, when should be the smart idea for the Texans to go after Hooker?
Yeah, funny enough, man. So when the news came out to Cody and myself about the strong possibility of Hendon Hooker getting to the Houston Texans, I went ahead and made a mock draft. I traded from number 2 to 3. Excuse me. With that mock draft, I drafted Will Anderson at 3, excuse me. Jackson Smith Njigba at 12, and then I traded up for Hendon Hooker at 24. I think 2 and 12 is entirely too high. That is an overdraft. And if I'm being completely honest with you, ideally 33, excuse me, would have been perfect for Houston to draft Hendon Hooker. But if that's your quarterback, if that's your guy, then you got to go get him. You don't want to risk the possibility of losing out on a guy that you're passing up on the potential of the second best quarterback in the draft in CJ, maybe the higher ceiling quarterback in the draft with Anthony Richardson. You don't want to miss that opportunity, so you have to go up and go get your guy. I get it. What I like about Hendon Hooker in the process of him so far as a player is he didn't have the opportunity to compete in the Senior Bowl, didn't have the opportunity to compete at the Combine or his Pro Day. However, with the lack of physical opportunities this offseason, that allowed teams like the Houston Texans to dive into the mental side of football for a quarterback in Hendon Hooker. Spent time with multiple playbooks, different offensive coordinators. I think that mentally he has been able to there's a gift there because of the opportunities he's had in different systems. And I think that that's something that stands out over quarterbacks like a Will Levis, like a Anthony Richardson, maybe to a certain extent, even when I look at CJ Stroud. There's been a, consistent Ryan Day for Ohio State. So I think what he brings to the game mentally helps his case, even with the lack of physical opportunities this offseason. And for a guy like Hendon Hooker, who is coming off of that ACL injury, you have to question, whether or not his body can hold up. And I get it. When I look at his tape, not as athletic as the guy I'm about to say. Nowhere near. Like, this guy rushed for 1,100 yards his junior year at Clemson and threw for over 4,000 yards.
Be careful now.
But when I look at some of the games, when I look at the gamesmanship, the clutch plays, especially this past season before he got hurt against, the Alabama game was amazing. His ability to stand in the pocket, take some of those hits and deliver, make those big plays downfield, his accuracy with those plays downfield and how he is accurate in immediate routes. When I look at his tape, I do see a bit of Deshaun Watson there. And Hendon Hooker was asked, who does he mirror his game around? Deshaun Watson and a little bit of Josh Allen came up in his response. So he is a guy that Houston should not overdraft. 2 and 12 is entirely too high. And if you cannot trade up from 33 to go get him, then the risk is you trade back from 12 to go get him. But he is a better option. He is a better prospect in my eyes outside of the injury than a Will Levis. If he is hurt and he is allowed to finish out his college career outside of the ACL injury, we would be looking at him as the 3rd overall prospect. There may be some competition still there between him and Anthony Richardson because people love AR's physical attributes. But in terms of pure quarterback, he isn't necessarily a dual threat. He was recruited as a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school, but he is a pocket passer. He is a guy that can stand in their pocket, 1 step, no step, 2 step, 3 step, drop back. He can make some of these throws. He can do it. He can do it down the field. He can do it intermediate routes. And I like the way that he processes. Now, in that Tennessee system. They run a ton of plays. With those plays, they try their hardest to catch the defense off guard. That plays into their system, into their favor, But he's a guy that mastered that playbook. And I think if he would have got an opportunity to be the starter full-time at Virginia Tech, he may have never transferred, right? And, it worked out in his favor. I think that, the better opportunity came from being in the SEC, competing in the last 2 years, where he's thrown for over however many touchdowns. Cody just gave you the numbers. But he's a guy that I think Houston benefits from. And I'll tell you why. Also, before we leave, there is no rush to get him on the field. There wasn't a real rush and it probably should have been, but when Deshaun got to Houston, there was still Tom Savage. Patrick Mahomes was able to sit under Alex Smith, who was a Pro Bowl All-Pro quarterback at that time. Aaron Rodgers with Brett Favre, Jordan Love with Aaron Rodgers. Like, there are opportunities where it's okay to get a quarterback. You get them in the first round, but allow them an opportunity to sit. And so trading back, I think, helps Houston out because they'll be able to acquire more picks and help themselves build a full and complete team, because whoever's going to be under center, and if it's Hendon Hooker for the first couple of weeks of the season, I would be okay if it's Davis Mills because he's not your future, and then that's the route you're going with. Like, if it was CJ, of course, no Davis Mills. But if it is Hendon Hooker, Davis Mills, or maybe even Case Keenum, then you allow that quarterback in Hendon Hooker to learn the game of the NFL football ropes, come in with no added expectations and pressure, which has been something that DeMeco Ryans has talked about in the past.
Really quick before moving on, I do want to connect the dots to what Nick Caserio has said in the past about his ideal prospect as a quarterback. A couple months ago, he came out and said that he would prefer a big body quarterback. Hendon Hooker is 6'4", 222 pounds. I also want to mention last week on Sports Radio 610, when Nick Caserio was asked about the final evaluations on how do this team evaluate quarterbacks, he did go out his way of saying that they made sure that they get with the medical staff to see about the health status with these prospects. I take a look at that. Once again, the only prospect entering the draft that's banged up, unfortunately, is Hendon Hooker. Do not be surprised come late Thursday night, early Friday evening in the second round, Hendon Hooker will be your quarterback for the Houston Texans.
Grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. You can go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. You can bet on anything, like how many strikeouts will a pitcher have? Hey, will Alex Bregman get a couple of home runs tonight? You will be able to bet on all of that on FanDuel. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 back in bonus bets when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. FanDuel is the official partner of the Major League Baseball. Locked On's NFL mock draft special is here, is back, and is bigger than ever. Follow along all 32 teams' first pick in a 6-episode ultimate mock draft experience. Only Locked On can deliver. All episodes are available now and on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Locked On Texans podcast. If you are new to the show, we appreciate you. Make sure you are following on YouTube, subscribing, following on Twitter as well. Cody, what else we got to talk about with the Houston Texans?
The last 2 weeks for the Texans, from the team, reporters, fans, everybody just seemed like they just been in some type of dump. The promise that we all had following the hiring of DeMeco Ryans, hearing the news that the Houston Texans had the #2 overall pick, knowing that this draft class potentially provided not one but 2 franchise caliber quarterbacks. It seems like that this franchise had a yellow brick road type of a path to follow back to relevancy. But of course, knowing the Houston Texans, they always try to find a way to just make life hard for no reason. And John, unfortunately, I do want to revisit the Houston Texans Week 18 victory over the Indianapolis Colts. As you guys know, the Houston Texans did win their season finale against the Colts 32-31. I want to bring this up on several different reasons. One, first and foremost, go ahead.
When you look at all of the alternate realities of how this offseason could have played out, Lovie Smith going out there
And Brandon Cooks.
And Jordan Akins and Davis Mills going out there and winning that game that was clearly more valuable if they lost.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look back and laugh at that. Like, I know some Texan fans, they are pissed about that, but that was a game where it's just like, why do this? If that little like wrinkle in time could potentially mess up the entire offseason. I don't think it will, but just breaking fun of that because the victory, like
it's not just the offseason, it's what that victory could possibly do to DeMeco Ryans' coaching tenure. And look, guys, I wanted to bring this up because look, after that game happened, there was a lot of debate, whether the Houston Texans should have won that game or not. And I was on the verge that they should have won. And I only said that because, one, I'm not a believer in tanking. And two, because I've been around the Texans and been around the Rockets. Ever since both of those franchises started their rebuild, I see what the smallest victory can do for the players. I see what the smallest victory can do for those coaching staff. I see what the smallest victory can do for the franchise. There was a big difference going into the locker room, talking to these players after they have came away with a victory versus when they come away with another loss. That's why a lot of these times I root for these guys, no matter what's at stake. However, John, listeners and viewers, when I take a look at that game, I truly believe that that is a game I would like to say that looking back on it, the Houston Texans should have lost, because the one thing that we have been hearing over the last 2 weeks was the fact that Bryce Young is an even more better prospect than everyone already knew going into the draft season. Like, everyone knew he was this franchise caliber player, but everyone kind of had him and CJ on the same level field. However, following the results of the combine, following the pro days at Alabama, following the 2 top 30 visits that he had, the fact that you had one of the quarterback needy teams trade up to number 1 in the Carolina Panthers, and it's basically 90% chance that they're going to take Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick. The Houston Texans definitely wanted Bryce Young. And John, I look at that game and look at the fact that, given everything that has coming out about CJ over the last couple of weeks, unfortunately, that did the complete 180 to what it did to Bryce Young, his draft stock has fallen. John, I look at this from a standpoint more so DeMeco Ryans, like I just mentioned. This is the reason why we talk a lot about the quarterback position. This is the reason why so many people want to hammer on the importance of the Texans going after a quarterback and getting your potential franchise quarterback as of right now, because we all want to see DeMeco Ryans succeed, but he only has 5 years. And in those 5 years, you take a look at the landscape of quarterbacks in the AFC, the talent is stupid crazy. You got Patrick Mahomes. You got, as of right now, Lamar Jackson. Deshaun Watson, I'm pretty sure he's going to get back to the player he was here in the city of Houston. You got Tua if he can stay healthy. You got Justin Herbert. You got Joe Burrow. Like, you have so many of the top of the top of the top elite quarterback and arguably the best quarterback in the league in your conference. And I take a look at this from a standpoint.
And Aaron Rodgers in New York now.
And Aaron Rodgers in New York, if he drinks the foundation of Luke that he's probably going to borrow from LeBron James. By the way, LeBron, 20 and 20. My God, 38. Please just stop it. But I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers is going to find a foundation of you in New York, and he's probably going to add on another 2 to 3 years to making the Jets competitive in this conference. I say all that just to say, when you take a look at DeMeco Ryans' 5 years, it's very important for him to find a quarterback that can compete to the level of those other quarterbacks, because if not, I don't see the Texans moving forward without a quarterback that can rise the caliber of play like the ones that I just mentioned. And once again, we are all rooting for D'Amico Ryans, but that victory week 18 against the Indianapolis Colts, it's going to do, it has the possibility to do a lot more damage to this franchise, not just for this draft, but for the at least 3 to 4 years. It's going to have a pretty big ripple effect.
Yeah, and so I think that when you look at the AFC and the NFC, like Cody just mentioned, the AFC has the quarterbacks that are just naturally elite.
Mm-hmm.
Burrow, I love Burrow. Herbert,
Boy.
Mahomes,
Josh Allen. I forgot to add
Josh
him.
Allen. By the way, the AFC East is going to be super interesting with Aaron Rodgers in New York now, Josh Allen in Buffalo, Miami, and we know who the bottom tier team is in that division right now.
Hey, don't sleep on Mac Jones, man. Don't sleep on Mac Jones and shit.
We got Aaron Rodgers, got Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Like, those are elite quarterbacks, and I think that when you look at what Houston is trying to do from day one, D'Amico Ryans wants to build a system, and with that, like, this is the real ripple effects of winning that game. Like, we look at Bryce Young, who under Bill O'Brien played in their pro-style offense. We feel like outside of his height and maybe his stature, not necessarily his height, but his stature, his physical build, that would be able to translate to the NFL. And mentally, he's just pretty much above a lot of players at that position. I think so. But when you look at how the AFC and the NFC is set up, the NFC and those top tier quarterbacks in the NFC, I think they have a good system that they're in. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo. We just saw what Brian Daboll was able to do in New York for Daniel Jones. And so to compete in the AFC really means you need to have a quarterback that is the cream of the crop, the top guys. And when you look at most of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, now with Aaron Rodgers in the AFC East, what are you going to say? They're just naturally better than the other guys in the league. The top 10 is just naturally better than the other 32. 22 in that case. So I want to put an emphasis on the importance of building a system is good, but they need a quarterback that when that system breaks down, because at some point a system breaks down, can that quarterback elevate everybody else around them? And that is the question that Houston has to live with. Like, when can't run the ball, like things are breaking down, and the spots that you are normally putting your quarterback into those positions to win, when that's not happening, what can that quarterback do to say, you know what, I don't need the system. The system needs me. I am the system. I can go out there and ball out. That's what's going on with Patrick Mahomes. That's what's going on with Lamar Jackson. He is this system.
Yeah.
The MVP was the system. Joe Burrow, right? Like, so, and they did a very great job of investing in Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow, I think he is the system for the Bengals. He's that good of a player. We saw the system break down with Tua. When that system wasn't working anymore, just didn't look necessarily good. And of course, health is a huge reason why that it wasn't looking as good as well. So that is the ripple effect of losing out on that number 1 overall pick. Because with Bryce Young, the system can break down, and I think that he is smart enough, athletic enough in the pocket, and I think he has enough arm strength to be able to say, I don't need the system right now. The system needs me, and I can elevate the other players around me. Outside of a Anthony Richardson, like those type of quarterbacks that could potentially go at 2, they need the system at least coming into the NFL. And that is hard to compete with in the AFC, where you have to Trevor Lawrence in your division. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. Just talking to my group chat. We still want to see what Deshaun Watson can do from a football standpoint. That's 8. Right there. Right there. And I didn't even mention Tua.
Russell Wilson, who has a better coach
Russell
this year.
Wilson. Russell Wilson is in the AFC now. That's 10 quarterbacks right there. And I know I'm missing out on some guys, right? So just the system is important. The system can allow this team to win games, but will it allow this team to be a winner? And to be a winner, you got to win it.
Really quick, Davis Mills in his last game, 22 for 38, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns. Brandon Cooks, the only time he eclipsed over 100 receiving yards this season, came in that Week 18 victory against the Indianapolis Colts, of course, with 5 catches and 1 touchdown. And of course, the one thing we have all been dying to see Davis Mills do is lead a team down the field to a victory. He did it on the Houston Texans' last possession of the season, connecting with tight end Jordan Akins. John, once again, that victory could have a ripple effect on this organization for not just in 2023, but for years to come.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way that we do until we talk things through. BetterHelp connects you with licensed therapists who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suitable to your schedule. You don't have to hop in the car to fight off Houston's 3:45 to 7 o'clock traffic downtown. You don't have to do any of that. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime you want for no additional charge. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Texans podcast. Before we close out, the Houston Texans put out I would describe it as a very Jack Easterby type of tweet. It was a graphic, and that graphic read, "Failure is not an option, it's a necessity. Every misstep is a lesson learned. Every setback a chance to grow stronger. Embrace the struggle and become unstoppable." What the hell? What does that even mean? Like, it sounds like a setup for disappointment. And then shout out to the Jags.
Oh boy, that was the worst part about this.
The troll job on that. Here's the funny part about all of that. You guys got to stop attacking the Twitter page. There is a social media intern behind that page that probably tweets what the franchise wants. They're not Nick Casario. That isn't D'Amico Ryan. That isn't Cal or Hannah. That's probably some young in college, about to end off college, fresh out of college, trying to do their job. They don't know. They don't know. Like, they don't know, man. A funny tweet, but it does sound like it's a setup for Thursday's draft night.
People say it's a setup, but John, I've been speaking positivity all this week, and I'm going to continue with the positivity. And when I looked at that tweet from the positive lens that I have on my face right now, I said to myself, this is a tweet of the Houston Texans saying, we know we have messed up over the last 3 seasons. We had to go through it. And along with this new era everyone has been preaching, we are ready to move forward with a dawn of a new era. I felt like that was a tweet of the Houston Texans saying that they have learned from their mistakes. And like I mentioned, they are ready to move on. I refuse to look at that tweet with a negative point of view. However, John, I agree with you. I agree with the listeners and the viewers at the end of the day. What in the hell was that tweet? And why would you tweet that the first day of the week before draft week?
Like, why not last week?
Yeah, why not last week? Why not at the end of the No, even better. Why not after you won that victory against the Indianapolis Colts? That would have been perfect.
Would have been perfect. Why not after you fired Jack Easterby? Like, just
but I don't know. I don't know. Like I mentioned, man, positivity speaking into existence with the number 2 overall pick. The Houston Texans will select CJ Stroud. But this is the Houston Texans. As I mentioned, it seemed like they had a yellow brick road to follow to just ease on down the road to an easy, successful draft. But for some reason or another, they wanted to flip the script. But who knows?
thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube under the name Locked On Texans. Also, make sure that you are following the Locked On Texans Twitter page at Locked On Texans throughout the week, especially when I'm feeling better. But make sure you guys are following Cody Davis and myself for all of the fun, interactive, but draft talk tweets that we have going on.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Once again, that's Cody COTY DAVIS _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.